Hello, welcome to the Zulu cast episode 9. And today I had work uh, from like 4 to 9.
Yep.
It was an okay shift. It was fine. It was like, like we got busy a little bit, never too busy. And I made some sauce. I made like 200 original sauces. I also made like 200 sweet sauces. We didn't sell out of ribs, which is good. Rib Bone Tuesday, because sometimes on Rib Bone Tuesday we sell out of ribs. And like, okay, so where I work is called City Barbecue, and every Tuesday we have this deal where it's 40% off of ribs, right? So they're usually $3 a bone, but they went down to $2 a bone, like 40%
Jesus.
off. And because there's a deal, people buy them quickly. But also because they buy them quickly, we sometimes sell out quickly. So people will come in, and I'll be working cash register at this restaurant, and they'll be like, "It's Rib Bone Tuesday, and you guys sold out of ribs," and I have to be the messenger and tell them like, "Yep, we sold out of ribs." So that's episode 9, everybody. No, I'm kidding. All right.
Imagine that's episode 9, guys.
Welcome to episode 9. It's about codependency. I am your host, Alan. I am joined by my co-host, Creek.
Yo. Yo. Sorry.
Oh, he struggled there.
I was drinking water.
Oh no, bro.
You're drinking a Bud Light, bro. Burping like that, bro. Definitely drinking a Bud Light. We got our host, Leo, back again.
Oh,
And our friendly neighborhood, Max.
Greetings.
Yep. So, I don't really have anything to say. You guys go ahead.
that's a horrible host. Shoot.
Yeah,
Hey, you had to
horrible
make
host.
200 sauces. Hey, I work at the same place this fool works at. I had to wash 200 dishes, okay? Which one of those is harder, bro?
He was over there scrubbing them dishes. I know how that is. I wash dishes. I know the struggle.
It is
Yeah.
true.
Do you have to
So
wash them all by
everybody-
hand?
Leo also
Uh,
works at City
kind of.
Barbecue, and he's a dishwasher, so he has to wash dishes. And the restaurant closes at 9, but sometimes he has to stay till like 10:30 because you can't leave until you're done washing the dishes. And when he first got there, he didn't really have a method for doing the dishes, but over time he got one for doing the dishes. So he's a lot quicker now, and he leaves. He leaves earlier. I mean, but there's like some dishes that he gets where you can't even clean, like the peach cobbler pans. If you get them too late, like
They're stuck.
You gotta soak them overnight.
Yeah, you just got to.
I had to soak 5 today.
that is. Oh, you had to soak 5.
5, yeah.
No mac and
5
cheese
5.
pans.
Yeah. What?
No mac and cheese pans.
No, those are easy to clean. You just let those soak for like 10 minutes, then they're ready.
Yeah. I took home some banana pudding. We had some banana pudding up front, and I took it home, and I think our goal was $6,000 for sales. I think we definitely hit that. No, it wasn't too busy, but we had a steady current of people flowing in the restaurant.
An employee caring about the revenue is so funny. Man. Like literally doesn't. It doesn't matter if we sell 10,000 or 2,000. Like you don't get the money. Like you don't get any more money. It's just like.
Yep, that's how it
anything.
is.
I pray.
Yeah.
Better hope
Yeah.
for the least amount of work probably.
The way that I think about it though is it's like it's my job, so I
Mm.
should take it seriously. Even if I'm getting
That is
paid
true.
like $6 an hour, it's still my job. So
Fair
at the end of the day, I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna do what I'm told. I'm gonna put on my City Barbecue hat, and I'm gonna put on my City Barbecue smile. And I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna give my best City Barbecue service.
What a respectable
For the-
guy.
For the City Barbecue family.
City Barbecue on Central Avenue in Toledo. Come try us out, guys. Come try us out. We got some good brisket. this needs to be a podcast episode. City Barbecue needs to be its
City
own
Bar-
podcast.
I didn't. Anyways, man.
Anyways,
This
look,
codependency
we're not gonna
shit,
do
man.
this process where we explain to you guys what codependency is. You already fucking know what codependency is. It's somewhat cultural. It's been talked about. So we'll have some sort of discussion on codependency, what it means to us, how we interpret it. First, I think it would be poignant for us to share with everybody, our beautiful viewers, our children that enjoy watching the podcast, our beautiful children. You will submit to us. 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 Anyways, so
It's like a win.
my my relationship to codependency, right? When I was younger, I think I was pretty codependent. Now, it's hard to gauge when you like 5 or 6, bruh. I don't really know if I could like gauge how codependent. I think actually you can to some degree. With people that are like super extroverted, because you would say to some degree codependency coincides with extroversion, right? But for people who are super extroverted, I like notice them to be more codependent. And there's like obviously a nurture aspect to it. Like if you nurture somebody correctly and they have a substantial amount of self-esteem, they're less likely to be needy and less likely to feel dependent on other people in order to network themselves through the world and shit. But, you do need to some degree be codependent. So I'm not saying you should just be this isolated island. But we all know codependency is bad, all right? I don't want to come and just say the same shit. Anyways,
Yeah.
there's like super young kids where I can see the codependency in them already. And maybe if you nurture them enough, it'll wane. But like, for example, my mom has an in-home daycare. And there's kids that are like 2 years old that are obviously more extroverted than other kids. And that isn't just to say that they want more validation than other kids, or it isn't to say that they socialize more or less than other kids. I would think of it like, if we're going to be constructive when talking about codependency, and we know to some degree it's a problem, then we have to talk about the problematic aspects of it. And the problematic aspects of it is obviously being attached to other people, needing validation, and soaking up other people of their vitality. There's this like there's a couple kids at this daycare though that everything they do, they want you to see it, or every second they're poking at you, trying to get your attention to do something. Or if they see a kid do something, right? Like if a kid does some shit that's impressive to a toddler, like a little like flip, but you know how like when kids do flips, they don't really flip, like they kind of like roll over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like kids in the daycare that'll do a flip, and then another like these codependent kids will also go do a flip immediately because they want to be seen doing that. And now again, to some aspect, that's just being a kid. But I can see codependency in very young people. I could see very young people having more of a propensity for codependency. And also, I'm sure there's attachment styles. There's certain kinds of codependency. But when I was very young, I don't think I could track my codependency. I realized that I have a natural propensity to be codependent when I was like, I'd say when I was like 14. Because there was one girl at middle school where I had a crush on this girl, and I would think about this girl every single day. And the girl wasn't showing interest. And I remember being upset about it to the point that like this is what my day was like in 8th grade, middle school, right? I would go to school and I would try to get this girl's attention. Like anytime I was in a classroom or at lunch, I would try to get this girl's attention. I would always be doing something to get this girl's attention, talking to her or doing like some shit to sub-communicate that she should be looking at me, right? So I would do that, and then I would come home and I would lay down on my bed and I would look up at the ceiling, thinking about how I hate myself. I would literally have an inner dialogue where I was like, my inner dialogue would literally consist of me being like, why do I have to be born being me? Why can't I be the person that has the girl? All this shit. And I would think about like how perfect this girl is. And I remember I used to have this problem where I would tell people like, I feel like everybody is so awesome and I can identify like why everybody's so great, but I can't identify my own, like I cannot, like everybody just seems better than me. So like that's another thing, as a codependent, you put halo effects on people, right? These stark idealizations. So I remember having that problem. I would lay in bed, think about that shit. Then I would go shower. Now, I would shower in the dark, bro. Like, I would have the light off. I would sit down in the shower and just, like, think, like, sad. Everything would move slow. Shit just sucked. And then into freshman year, I still had a huge crush on this girl. And it was still, like, more or less the situation. But I was so depressed from it. It actually gave me brain fog. And I remember having my first stage of brain fog in my life when I was in like freshman year of high school. And I remember like being unable to think clearly and my brain literally feeling foggy. It's hard to intellectualize that state because I haven't been in it in so long. But my brain was like feeling foggy and shit. And somewhere in that year, I just realized like, okay, this shit isn't gonna work out. Also, like with that girl. Also, though, I got an attachment to another girl. There was a brand new girl I idealized, and I texted every day, and I would text everybody about how great this girl is, and I would text her shit like, I would literally say this to her. I was like, I don't care how long it takes. I can't be your boyfriend until 10 years from now. I will take it because I just want to be with you. I remember texting my older cousin specifically. I was like, I've tried everything to get this girl. I was like, I've tried everything to get this girl, and it's not working. And then, you know, what sucks is he made it worse. He said, you didn't try everything or else you would have the girl.
Damn.
So I was like, that's
That's
right.
like the worst
There's
thing
more,
you can say.
I was like, there's more stuff to try. There's more stuff to try that I'm going to get to. Then, remember, and this was like, this sparked me getting into self-development. This sparked me getting over this whole codependency thing. This was like a life changer. I was at my cousin's house the summertime. It was like, I think it was like summer 2016, and it was either 2016 or 2015. He was talking to me, and he was like, Alan, come swim with us. And I was like, oh, I don't want to. And then he was like, oh, I'll come do it. And then I did, right? And then he was like, why won't you take your shirt off? And I was like, oh, I just don't want to. You know, I don't want other people to see me. Da, da, da. And he was like, Alan, you have low self-esteem. And I was like, no, I don't. What are you trying to say? And then he talked to me more about it, and I realized, like, yeah, I do. And I used to think about self-esteem in a very like narrow linear sense, which was like, am I the person who deserves self-esteem? Am I like one of the people who are good enough? Over time, though, because that, you know, like just the seed of him telling me I had low self-esteem, it sparked me learning about self-esteem and learning about other personal development topics. And after that shit, you know what I'm saying, I studied that shit, and I cleared it up. I started working on myself every day. I started working on loving myself. I stopped thinking about self-esteem like, do I deserve self-esteem? And I started to just think like more positively in general. Now, the reason I started to think positively was like a success thing, like a LOA thing. I was like, if I think positively, I'll get what I want. I'll get famous. I'll get girls. I'll get to the, and that's not like how I think about it anymore, but that's how I thought about it at the time, right? So, and over time, that grew to my belief now, which is everybody is lovable and everybody's good at their core. Like, even if they have some like complex that motivates them to act negatively, I still think at our core, every human has positive intention, right? So I started, you know what I'm saying, I'm loving myself, I'm feeling myself, and naturally, when I had more self-esteem, I didn't feel such a codependent draw. I didn't feel like, oh, this one girl, this, da, 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 and I wasn't chasing anybody, and I started to get more attention from girls, which is something I never got in my life. I was like, it was like, by now it's like sophomore year, and I'm getting more attention. I'm getting attention that I've never gotten in my life. And it shifted from like, I want the girl, to me literally getting in the mindset of like, I can have any girl I want. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, if I go out and get it, I could go get the girl, which may be pretentious. It's definitely, it's not true in an ultimate sense. It's not like I can just go cherry pick a girl and make her mine. But it inspired that. And after I touched more self-esteem, I just felt less codependent. And there's been times, you know, where I still get this like needy, I get this sense of neediness to a girl. And there's been times where I've had like toxic codependent dynamics. But through ideas like Stephen Covey's concept of like the levels of relationship kinds or whatever, which is like codependence, independence, and interdependence, that has helped me a lot. Through shit like that, I feel on top of it. And I feel like now, in this iteration of me, I feel it's very unlikely for me to get into codependent trances with people, and I feel 100% capable of having an interdependent relationship, which is more valuable than a codependent relationship, because I don't think codependent relationships are real. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about like specifically what is unhealthy about codependency, and we talk more about the dynamics in general. But I just first wanted to share my relationship to codependency. I had it, started off very codependent, and I feel over it. At this point, I'm 22. I don't feel like I have that problem anymore. Freak, what is your relationship to codependency?
My relationship with codependency, I don't think I've experienced it in any tangible way in my life. Um, so I don't think I could talk about it to the extent that you have, because I haven't had personal experiences where I've idealized somebody or obsessed over them to the point where I lose sight of who I am and what sort of person I am. But I think I've definitely experienced friends and family members who have gone through like codependent fits where they have fixations on a certain person and can't seem to can't seem to like get a view of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say like a real, because I think what happens with codependent people is they get to a point where they idealize somebody so much that they lose sight of reality. But it's a hard line. It's hard to say like what reality is, because like where do you draw the line between like someone idealizing someone and someone just being in love, you know? Because like a lot of times when, I don't know, let's say you want to have an intervention for your friend because you think they're too codependent or something, you know, someone like Mac, let's say, right? It could just be that.
Hey, I'm not codependent. What are you talking about?
No, but I'm just saying as an example. It could just be that they're, you know, they're in love, and they'd be like, no, they're fine, because a core component of like people who are codependent is that they rationalize. They're always rationalizing whatever like excuse that you give, whatever like reason that you may give them. So like, I don't know, if someone's like in an abusive relationship and you tell a friend, oh, but they beat you, like you literally have scars from like all the times that you like being
Still
in
a good person. He just gets angry
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll create like rationalizations as to like why that person's okay. So I think in that sense that they do have a break or like some sort of like incongruence with reality, because like they refuse to accept, I don't know, just like the basic I wouldn't say basic, but like things that are obvious and they would definitely
Like the
pick up on
objective
if
truth
they
of
were
the reality.
satisfied. Yeah, I mean I would try and avoid that word, but yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, like I think they would ignore things that they normally would pick up on. So I think it can be harmful in that way, because I think that's harmful for also for the other person in the relationship. Like if because I think codependency is like a process here. It doesn't just happen, right? It's a process like that you reach through idealizing the other
I don't
person.
think there's people
And
who just have temperaments where they're like naturally swayed to be more codependent than other people.
yes, I do. But I think my point was just that it's like, because I think when you look at the literature for codependency, they talk about the receiver, the person on the other end, right? Who you're
Yeah.
idealizing, right? Yeah. So that's usually the narcissistic person, right? Like let's
Which
say
I have a problem with
archetypally,
that map though, because I've seen a lot of relationships that are like two codependents. Like Max, no offense, your last relationship was two codependents. I don't think there was a narcissistic party
You know, which is
that
crazy that
relationship.
you say that, because like my one friend seems to think that she's a narcissist, and I don't see that.
Well, they always try to fit that like dynamic. Like there always has to be somebody
But
else
yeah,
who's taking.
Mhm.
And I do agree. Like there is like a lot of that.
yeah, where there's like a narcissist and then an extreme codependent. Yeah.
Yeah, usually an enabler, like somebody who feeds off the fact that somebody wants them like that and just them and would never leave them and would only set a boundary and like, or would never set a boundary. Like there's people that feed off that. Creek, I had a question though, because we are somewhat
yeah.
like touching on just codependency as a concept. So parties where, okay, like, there's codependent people that get into very unhealthy relationships, and they talk about like the sometimes it's as far as a straight up physically abusive pattern. Other times it's a mentally abusive pattern. Also, sometimes I wouldn't use the word abusive at all. I would just say like mentally straining. Somebody just being mentally straining, not because they have any sadistic intention, but just because of, like the outcome of being that close to somebody and spending that much time with somebody. Somebody who's getting in those, what I see as a problem is like people are always like, "Oh, I feel so bad for you because you're on the side of that," and that is a problem, especially when there's like physically or mentally abusive people who have sadistic intention. It is obviously a problem, but I feel like there's not many people that like would hold like a fire to the person and say like, "You are always chasing relationship." Would you agree like this is a problem that there's somewhat of a permissive attitude towards in modern culture?
Wait, you cut out at the last part. What did you say? In what culture? What?
Would you say that this is like codependency and people who are always chasing relationships even if they're bad, and who wouldn't leave even if they were bad, and who is always looking for relationships just to be in them, basically just because they crave them, right? Do you think that there's a permissive attitude to those people in our modern culture?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think it's definitely sensationalized. I think it's way more it's way more okay in culture to be a codependent person, instead of the opposite, right? Instead of being a narcissistic person, like, because like that's why they demonize the narcissist, right? They would say if you're the enabler, you're a terrible person because you're letting this person. There's a bit of an echo. Why?
It's not an echo for me.
Okay. Anyways, yeah. So like they demonize the enabler, but they don't take into account what part the codependent plays into the picture, right? Because I would say like it's equal, right? I mean, if you're sitting there and you're letting the other person, okay, I don't know. I don't want this.
I don't know if it's.
to
I
make me
mean, in a sense, it's
just-
equal. I get both sides. I get what you mean by it's equal
Yeah.
because they are putting themselves in that situation and they're not working on it. That if anything, they're labeling the other party narcissistic to halo affect their own tendency and to make it look like what do codependents call themselves? Do they call themselves codependents or do they call themselves empaths? Right? But at the same time, like the narcissistic party is usually the one, like he's this it's crazy I said he intuitively, like I thought of it as a man. They are the person that seeks this out, and they are the person who is more strategic in implementing implementing strategies to bring down the energy of the codependent. I see both sides, but I get what you mean.
Do you think they do it consciously? Because I think, for the most part, when people paint this picture, they make it out to seem as if these narcissists are going around seeking these weak people that they can take control of. Or do you think it's like, for the most part, unconscious and they can't really, and they just always look for that sense of power within the relationships, that dynamic?
I think, yeah, I do think they seek it. I don't think they know what they're doing. I do think they seek out people who have a weaker vibe, narcissists. Like, I do think they have a tendency to seek out people that seem like they have less boundaries. At the same time, I don't think a narcissist is like, I don't think they're conscious of what they're doing because narcissists tend to have gigantic halo effects on their process within a relationship.
Right.
But also, another point I wanted to make is I don't want to get too hung up on the narcissist codependent dynamic because I feel like it's overblown. Especially, you know how I feel about like modern psych and academic psych. I think it's like reductionist as hell. I think it's devolving us backwards in terms of self-actualization, especially when it has terminology like this, because it makes you so conscious on whether or not you're a codependent or a narcissist that it makes you avoid the potential of being whole. Like, a codependent, I think a codependent and a narcissist are on the same spectrum. In a sense, they're both on the codependent spectrum. A narcissist is like, I need everybody to admire me and think I'm great and pray to my self-image. And a codependent is like, I need one person to love me and I think they're great. And it's like, it's the same thing. I think ultimately, like, both of those things are a step below being independent, being whole, being above this craving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to tamper the direction that you were going with your speech at codependency. Please continue until you're done.
Yeah, no. That was pretty much it. Yeah, just that Well, I'm actually curious. So, what would a relationship between two codependents look like then? Like, would they just have like this constant loop of idealizing each other, and wouldn't that mesh well together? Because they'd just be gratifying each other's. They'd both be obsessed with each other because they're codependent with one another, right?
You would think, but okay. So Max was just in one of these, and I've seen other people who have these. One thing is that codependent people tend to be agreeable people, so they're very slow to bring up conflict. Another thing is they're so idealistic that they're out of touch in reality. So inevitably, you're going to clash with another person. Even if you were exactly the same, you're going to clash with another person because of just like situations that are going to follow in life. There's going to be some way, somehow, you're going to clash by being that close to another person. And that person could have trauma in the way of them connecting with people that they have to work through in order to retain a healthy relationship. So there's going to be something that you have to communicate. And codependents idealize the fuck out of everything that they're kind of out of touch with what's actually in front of them. And they have like they have a detached view of things, because I think to be codependent you kind of do have to hide from reality, which is why a lot of codependent people don't see weaknesses in their partner. Like Mia, our co-host, talked about this like in the RAS Flip podcast. He says she doesn't see weaknesses in people, period, and especially in the people that she's interested in. She rationalizes what they do. So I think like there's going to be a conflict in the fact that they're too idealistic to know what's in front of them. They're too agreeable to bring up conflict, and they're like detached from what's happening. So their partner could be mentally, their partner could be deteriorating their mental health, and they won't even notice it because they're idealizing the fuck out of that partner. So don't think it would work, because it's like, say if the world was all emotional people, would that work or would that look chaotic?
Be
I think it
chaotic
would
as
chaotic.
fuck.
Yeah.
I think it would be the same thing of codependent people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Anyways, pass the torch. Leo, what is your relationship to codependency? Oh, hell no. I think Leo fell asleep. I'm not going to lie to y'all.
Rip.
Did this last podcast too.
Really?
I'm pretty sure he's asleep. Yeah, if he's not asleep, then he'll come back.
Yeah.
Moving on. Max.
Oh, he's
What is
gone.
your relationship to codependency?
I am codependent as fuck. But no, it's actually something like I've only become aware of in the last few years, or I've had a word to describe what I've been feeling for probably a lot longer. Like I really kind of related to what Alan was saying, like about like the crush you had, about where it's like it's something like you always think about, like that person's always on your mind. You're always like, but what I've come to realize is that I'm pretty sure it's because of some insecurity I have with myself, that I always feel like the need to be like loved by one, like another person. So I would say, yeah, I'm codependent as fuck. I don't really know how to explain like further other than that. If you guys want to ask me like questions, but
When did you realize you were codependent?
I realized it was like a problem only in the last like few years. But
At
because
what point did you realize it was a problem?
probably after like my first relationship in high school. Like during that breakup, I'm like, oh damn, so like this is what that feels like, because like that was like my first, I would say, like real relationship. So when we broke up, it was just like I realized how I just kind of like overly idealized a person, and then it's like I would like my whole concept of like reality was just fucked during that time. Like I would like kind of like how you were saying how you were doing everything you like could to try to get that girl's attention. I feel like I was doing like kind of like the same kind of thing. But yeah, I would say after that breakup, I realized I was really codependent.
They move to like the person of your codependent interest moves to like a godlike image, because if I had a talent when I was codependent, say if I had a talent, I wouldn't acknowledge to myself that talent. Or if I could, if I would say I'm good at this, or I did this good, or I have this good trait, I would feel very neutral to it. It would be hard to associate any warmth to that trait for myself. Like I wouldn't appreciate in myself the fact that I have that trait. But I could get that girl to think that, that would be a huge win. Like if I could like I don't know, say like humor. If I could make that girl laugh, it felt so fucking good. I would feel like the man, right? Oh, I
Like you
made
get
that
this
girl
like
laugh.
like this dopamine rush, and it's like, oh, like this warm fuzzy feeling. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's what I mean about feeling whole, because that dopamine rush, and then your brain
It's so
basically
addictive.
turns on. You come back from being contracted, and for the first time, you have access to your thoughts. You feel like you're free in motion. You feel congruent.
Yep.
You're irradiated of brain fog, and
Yep.
yeah, but it's funny because when you feel that, of course, it would be easy to be like, well, this is a good thing. Like
Yeah.
my
Like, look,
brain
this is
finally
fixing
working.
the problem.
Yeah, but it's literally just like.
It's a temporary crutch, and then when it's like that temporary crutch is gone, then it's like, oh, I am not whole as a person, and then you're like left with yourself pretty much. I feel like after that crutch is gone.
The fact that your brain only comes on after that person validates you should indicate that the problem isn't that a person. Yeah, it's not that the person wasn't validating you. It's like, why do you only come on when you are validated?
Yeah,
Why is that a problem?
by another, yeah.
When we talk about this as a problem, this has to be framed again by saying that codependence is a good thing, because I do think there's a community of people that take this the exact opposite way, and they feel passionate about somebody and they're like, this is bad, this is codependent. It's basically like, can you acknowledge that as a human being different from you, and can you love that person without being attached to that person? Like all of my exes, I love them. They're amazing people, especially my last one. She's a great person. She has many strengths, and I want her to win. I want her to love fully. I want all of my exes to love fully and live fully. I don't crave them, though. I'm not like, oh, the person, this person. And that's why codependency is addiction. You're like always thinking about this person, like, oh, this person, when am I going to get my person? When am I going to hang out with my person? When am I going to see my person? My person, my person, my person. One thing I see in codependent dynamics too is it motivates like subtle manipulation, like you doing something so the other person sees, or you doing like you being tactical to get your partner's attention, but wrapping it in an idealistic way. Which, Max, we won't say anything specific, but some situation related to you, you know what I'm saying, has that element of it. You know what I'm saying? Could you see what I mean? Of communicating tactfully.
Oh, yes.
And being kind of manipulative, but rationalizing how they're doing it by being so idealistic.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. No, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I want to talk to you then, Max, because I think like Creek hasn't, been in a romantic relationship long enough to have this problem. I feel like I've experienced this, but I've definitely gotten over it at this point.
Yeah, anything you guys want to ask away.
Yes, sir. What I want to ask of you is, what is the detached element that you have to this? Because you'll watch yourself do it, right? Like you'll be talking to a girl and you'll be like, look, I don't want to date just to date. I know that I date out of need and out of craving. And I want to be beyond that. I want to, have my own things going on for me. I want to be centered. I want to be not like depending on other people for dopamine. And, like I want to get some momentum in my life before I date. And then you'll be like, I'm not even going to talk to anybody. So then you'll talk to a girl, right? Yeah. And you'll be like, okay, I'm not going to date her though. I know you're like, I got to. Then you'll fucking date her. And then like, I can sense that you're getting more and more attached to this person and that you're craving to be in a relationship with them. And every time I've been like, Max, you're about to date this girl, aren't you?
I'm like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not,
The tone in your voice is, well, yeah, you have that, but when you finally admit to it, you're like, yeah, okay, I am going to date it. You say it with like this tone that is humorous to you, that you're even doing this. It's like you're watching yourself go into this trance where you feel a lack of control to it, and you're almost giving yourself away to it. So I'm not going to like ask you to specifically pinpoint what causes that, but could you describe that for me?
Like, describe.
The detached relationship you have to it where you feel so out of control of it.
It's. I was just talking to my grandpa about this. I was like, it literally, this feels like a drug. Like when, like somebody that I'm into like starts to show interest in me back. It's like I don't know like what makes me become so detached to it. It's just like I'm like, I know this is not good for me. I'm like, I know I probably shouldn't be doing this, like, or this isn't good in the long run. But then I'm like, but what if like this is the right person? I'm like, then I start to tell myself all like these stories about that person, and then I feel like it kind of like rationalizes me getting in the relationship because it's what feels good, even though it's not probably what's best for me.
Yeah. One of the episodes we have in the future, and we're like basically to let the audience in how we're picking these episodes is we have all of our episodes ideas and then we spin a wheel, and then whatever like the wheel lands on, that's the episode we're going to do. One of the episodes I have written down for us is like a looking into of A Course in Miracles, some of like the basic ideas in that book. And this book is about like it's about the concept of connection and feeling connected, and it's like a book about the interpretation of Christianity from like a metaphoric sense, you know. And one of the things it talks about in the book is this concept of the special relationship. And it talked about avoiding the special relationship. And the idea of this book is that heaven is a place on earth, and it's where you should be, and you should choose to connect yourself to heaven. And one of the aspects of heaven here on earth is that everybody is connected. And in their idea of a special relationship is you feel this extreme connection with this person, and that's why you feel like they're so special. But you feel that way because you feel a separation from everybody else. So it's almost like you two and then everybody else, right? It's you two against the world, or it's you two as like the most important people and then the world. And you know, more and more as I thought about this, like it's a really poignant concept to think about, because I don't think codependents necessarily love people, and that's not the right verbiage for it. That's not the right way of describing it, because I don't think they're incapable of love, and I don't feel as if they have no warm connotation for the people that they're interested in. I feel like codependents idealize people to the degree that they're not seeing the person right in front of them. And another aspect of codependence is they date just to date. Me and my friend Lance, who hasn't been on this podcast yet, like in 2020, right, we were both talking to a lot of girls. And one of the things that we were commenting on to each other is that like every single girl that we were talking to wanted to be in a relationship with us basically before they knew anything about us. So it was to the point where like anybody they found attractive, they would date. Anybody in their vicinity that they had any sort of fascination with, they would date. And when it's like that, you're really dating just to date. You're dating to fill a hole. And as such, you attach whatever onto the person needs to be attached to the person so that you feel like they're the right person for you. And because of this whole idealization aspect of codependency, I don't feel as if codependents love as much as they think they do, because I find that codependents can't separate attachment from love. Like, and another thing I notice of codependents is when they're not in a relationship, they try to detach from the person. Whereas as somebody who has healed from codependency, one thing that I always try to do is I try to retain love for all of my exes, even if, you know, like I'm not like craving to be with them, even if it's not love like, oh, I want you so bad, my partner, blah, blah, blah. Like it's still like I want to appreciate that person and realize their interest. Codependents just try to forget that person in general, and it's almost as like their modality is looking for the next person that could fulfill that interest. Like it's a whole drive. It's this attachment drive. And if you can't discern attachment from love, then do you really love the person, or is that person just filling a gap? You know, we talked about this in our AS Flip podcast, which is loving people for who they are and not dating just to date. And I feel as if codependents date just to date. Max, you've talked about this. You said that you want to stop dating just to date because you realize like,
Yeah.
so like some people that you've dated aren't people that you're like, okay, this is like, once I think about it and I recollect on it, this is the person that would be good for me. You didn't reverse engineer like that. It was just somebody that was around, that some needy
Well,
like idealization came in, and then you attached it to
I
them.
really would say only like one out of the three that because I would say I've only been in like 3 serious relationships. I would say like one out of the 3 was just, I feel like, filling a role. That like
I definitely feel like I feel like 2 and a 3, but I'm not saying like maybe even 3 out of 3, but definitely 2 out of the 3. We don't want to go into
right. We can we can
details.
talk about that later. But yeah,
We can talk about it later. But I just because it was like, because I'm just saying, like, if you were to reverse engineer what's actually good for you, then you wouldn't have done it. And another thing is like, you didn't even like, talk to girls in general to figure out what girl would be good for you.
right.
There was just like one girl, and you were like, this girl feels like it. So if you don't really know who's compatible for you, if you don't even know what compatibility is, and then you're just going for it, are you really dating through a process of reverse engineering who would be healthy for you to date, or is it just a desire? It's almost like the codependent drive, I don't look at as any less superficial than the horny drive. Like, I don't look at it as any more meaningful than like the drive of like, I just want to fuck somebody and hook up, because ultimately it's like, in the same way you fucking a person is just them filling the role of your horniness, like you just want to nut on somebody and they're the person that you nut on. For codependence, I feel like it's they just want to be with somebody, and whoever is within their proximity becomes the person where like, this person, this is it. But if it's just somebody who just happened to be around you and you're dating them, are you really thinking about like, this person is good for me? Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other ways to question Mac. Creek, I challenged you to question Mac on his codependency, because I feel as if as INFP you could relate more. So
I'm just surprised, Creek, as like you being an INFP, you haven't felt more into like the codependent side.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
I don't know.
it's definitely a good thing, because it's like, it's codependent. Codependency sucks. Like, an unhealthy amount of codependency sucks. But no, I just think it's interesting as an INFP. Like, I feel like INFPs tend to be more codependent. So
Yeah, no, I can definitely see as to why that would be a valid conclusion for INFPs to have that hyperfixation, because like I think most NF types tend to have uh, obsessions, or like just periods of their life where they're obsessed with a certain thing, and then they just cycle between
yeah,
points in their life where they're obsessed with things. But in terms of relationships, I don't know. I've never experienced codependency, which is, I mean, I've experienced it, but I haven't experienced it to the extent where I could assess it as a problem that I need to fix in myself. Because the thing is with relationships, I'll come across someone, I'll be like, oh, I could date this person, I could be with this person, right? And then I'll think about them, because I think all INFPs do this. Like, there's like so many memes about how after we meet a person that we kind of like, or like they're sort of nice to us, we have like this whole like life for us like planned out in our head.
yeah, I
I've
feel
actually
that.
done that before. Yeah, I've actually done that before. But it's very short lived for me. Like, even after like they reciprocate feelings back towards me,
Huh.
I'll just find like flaws with them and that I don't like, and then it'll go downhill instead of, which is so odd, because I think for you it's the opposite. You'll find ways to like, I don't know, you'll be like, this is a perfect person, and when they do negative things, you'll still
Lately now,
find ways
though,
to forgive them,
I
right?
yeah. Oh, for a while I would say if that was me, but like now I feel like I'm more aware of what I'm like. I don't know. I like that's starting to happen to me more. Where like at first when I get that initial like like interest from a girl or whatever, and then I'll start like there'll be things that I like don't like, and then I'm just like, okay, yeah, and it's just like kind of more short lived now, but I feel like in the past it's been like but a lot worse. But I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what the driving force behind it is, because there's definitely points in my life where I'm more codependent and others where I'm not. So I wonder if there's this like underlying thing that like
Mm-hmm.
influences whether I don't know the levels to which I'm codependent. Um, how do you think? Have you found like what at what point would you say in your life were you the most codependent? Do you think like that you were like was it
Today.
like in high school?
Hmm.
Did you say today? What?
No, no, no.
As I kind of feel like, in a sense, the answer is your second relationship because you were in such an unconscious trance.
Really? You think that?
I don't think that was
Hmm.
like the most that you felt attached to the person, but I think that was like it was like so visible your codependence in that way because it took over to the point that you could not think clearly. Like that whole relationship like took precedence over so much of your life.
It's just so interesting that you think that whole era was like, for just hearing an outside perspective of that whole relationship. I mean, yeah, I just didn't even
Because
realize it
you're
at the
always
time.
one thing that like I've always known about you is you're morally accessible. Meaning if there's something that you're not like if there's something that you're doing that has a negative effect, you're very approachable for anybody to be like, Max, you're doing this thing
Hmm.
and it's detrimental to you and or to people around you. And after that, you'll think about it in the moment, then you'll loop on it even. You'll think about it like, man, like maybe I am like da-da-da. But in that point, you were in such a trance of like, whatever, I got my girl, we're just doing da-da-da-da, that somebody could have told you like, Max, you're doing this
Yeah.
problematic thing, and it would have just been in and out. Like you would have
Okay.
just memeified it and commodified it and just like went on.
Okay, so like I would say maybe with like hedonism, that was like my most hedonistic point, but I would say my most codependent point was my first relationship. That I like stand by because I was like obsessed with that girl. Like so obsessed with that girl. And I don't know if it was
Yeah.
cuz it was like my first like real relationship, that's why it felt. But like you really start convincing yourself of all these stories. Like I remember like there would just be like weird coincidences between me and this girl, like of things that happened in our life at certain points, and you start thinking like, oh, this is like the one for me. Like this is the like I don't know, because we have all these like weird coincidences together, and then I don't know, like that's just where my brain was at that point in my life. And I look back now and I'm like, okay, that's shit that happens to people, you know. I don't know, but I would say that was like the most codependent I've ever been. Was my very first relationship.
That makes me like happy to think about like not that it was so, like such a unhealthy relationship for you, but it makes me happy to think about the fact it makes me grateful I never got into a relationship when I was codependent. Like at least I'm like my most extreme codependent moment because if I did, it would have been so detrimental. Because I think about it and I'm like, if I was in a relationship when I was like 14, 15, 16, like my very codependent eras, then all that would have been going on for me is the girl. And after all my relationships, like so far that I've had, I've always had other things going on for me in my life, other projects I'm doing, or other things that I'm working on within myself, like goals, like
See, and that's where
like all these
like
things I'm building.
yeah, I feel like that's where I differ is like I find that like this is the main thing that will take over my life and like that's like the one thing that I like crave. Not and I like will put away my own goals and like yeah, you kind of like I don't know. That's my experience with it. Is it's like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, because there was a point when I was like as codependent as you, or I don't know about as, but I was very codependent. And I know that I would have been the same way. Like, I would not have been doing shit. I would have just been like, I got the
well
girl.
because it's
I got
yeah,
this.
it was but I guess in your case it was good that it didn't really feed the you know, I don't know. Because if
I'm
you were to
so
have gotten
happy
into a
about it.
relationship at that point in time, do you think that that would have like affected you differently?
Yeah, I mean, there would have been pluses with it because I think there's things like I wasn't well socialized as a kid, so because of that, there's things that I have had to learn that have been a slow grind, and I
Right.
didn't get like other experiences young. At the same, so it would have been a plus. At the same time, though, if I would have got like in a codependent relationship, then it would have stinted my growth. It would have been like a lack of spiritual purpose or lack of purpose in things in general. I would have found if I was with a girl like so excited. And another thing about it is like in a sense, it goes. There's an undertone to how a codependent relationship operates. Meaning, when you're in it, you're not telling yourself this thing of like, okay, I've basically made this girl my god, and this is everything. You think about it like it's just my girlfriend. Like I just want to like. You have this. You think as you would for it to be necessary as you are, like to be necessary for you to be as codependent as you are. So like you won't think about it like being honest with yourself about how bad it is. You'll think about like it's my girl and I want to go see my girl. What you don't think about though is it's your girl and you don't feel the same when you're not with her. You crave being with her all the time. You can't operate without her. You put so much of yourself into getting the fucking girl. Like and there's so many things that you're missing because you bit in on this opportunity to get the girl because all you were thinking about was this prospect of being in a relationship. You're not going to say that to yourself. All you're going to say is, it's my girl, bro. You know, like, I don't. And that's the problem with this in general because it's so fucking subtle. I wouldn't argue for people not to go interphase with people. I wouldn't argue with people not to have romantic endeavors. I would just argue for people not to, like, seek it out. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have that shit come to you naturally if you do believe in such a thing as natural or healthy love. That though we've asked this to you guys: what causes codependency? What causes this shit other than obviously temperamental propensity?
When I was reading the doc on it, it talked about childhood, childhood, like being exposed to it in your childhood, having like a neglectful, let's say, dad or mother. I think that could contribute to it. I mean, obviously, it's like not the only cause, but I could definitely see someone having a neglectful parent, and then that manifesting in the relationships that they have in their later lives and the way how they communicate with other human beings. You know, that would make sense to me.
Reminds me very quickly. We talked about like why Creek like isn't codependent. One thing I want to talk about is there. I do know of like an archetype of an avoidant INFP. There's some INFPs that know how emotional they are, so the overall route that they take when interfacing with people is tactful detachment. It's not like those INFPs also are very susceptible to RAS flips, I've noticed. Now, I haven't like went into that enough to know. That was just little. Max, you're a codependent. What the fuck caused it, bro? Why are you like this?
Wish I could tell you, bro. I don't know. I think it's because I don't like love myself enough. But like, what caused that? I don't know. I have like a low self-esteem. That's like literally the only thing that I can think that like truly causes my codependency. I don't think it has anything to do with like my parents. I don't think so. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you guys, but I really do not know what like.
One thing that I know though is that codependency is inexorable from low energy. When you are in a low energy, you just feel more codependent. Like you're always thinking about being around another person or building your life to be around other people, or like what it takes for you to be the type of person that's attractive to other people, or you're like being fanatic about somebody whenever you're in a low energy. When you're out of that, you don't really think about that. At least like I've experienced. Creek, you've read levels of energy, so you could probably like note variations of yourself in each energy. Don't you notice that like when you are in a higher energy, you just feel like cool, like you just feel like life is together as it should be, versus where when you are in a lower energy, there's this heavy desire for your life to be different and for you to have all like maybe all these people or a person in your life. Do you notice how codependency is tied to low energy?
Yeah, definitely. It actually reminds me of a message you sent me about how you always have this itching thought that you should be doing something, and it's like this constant like voice about worry, and if you don't do this, you won't actually get it done, and then you kind of like how actually kind of Jordan Peterson talks about it, right? He's like, oh, you need to you need to like scare yourself into doing things, like, because people will be lazy and you'll be like, but if you're lazy for the next 5 years, you'll have no job and you'll be homeless, blah blah blah. So you need to
Yeah.
scare yourself into doing things instead of like looking for motivation. um but that's the exact way I feel when I'm like, I think, low energy, or I'm in a codependent state. It's just that it's just that feeling of not having a lot of energy available to you, that scarcity mindset where you're like, I need to be doing something, otherwise I'm worthless. So you derive your worth of your sense of meaning and who you are by the things that you do, as opposed to by your essence of who you are, like intrinsically of who you are, which is something you get at a higher level, like above, like, let's say 500. Right? You don't really need to do anything. You know how in the Power of Now he talks about, like, the point of the Power Now, it's like things could go good. Like, you could meditate here, and then something could happen, and then you could feel really good, or things could go terrible, and then like you're completely annihilated, and nothing good happens. So it's like, it's not like you don't need to meditate on something good happening. You're just okay with everything. You don't need to like draw distinctions between like good and bad. You're just one with the moment. And I think that's something you gain at a higher level, and then you grow out of that codependency where you're just okay with being, as opposed to drawing those distinctions. So I think it's definitely like something you get at the higher levels, and codependency is definitely like something I would attach to probably what like 125, like desire, right? Like that's just that hedonistic
I would
chase
say
for
all the
something.
way up to 190 because the way that he
Mm,
describes getting over anger is like basically saying like I'm above it. Da, da, da. So I think like
yeah,
all of that is before like just like being bored, like just being like just like actually being over it.
definitely about apathy though. I think I would say.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Something I noticed too, like people like I mean we'll talk about this when we get like more into the levels of energy series, but people from like 50 to 190 like they just read human nature so shit like codependents like all think they're so good at reading people, but they have like these superficial narrative based ways of reading people, and they also have like that detached. They have such a detached view of things, but also have like such a permissive aspect of things. Like they okay, like Max's
Mm.
codependency, right? There's two things that cause it. One is the variation of a bunch of external factors. Maybe childhood trauma, maybe low self-esteem, maybe being low energy, maybe like not experiencing enough relationships, a variation of things. That's step 1. But here's step 2. And this is the part that like should matter to him as far as getting over the problem. Step 2 is he hasn't consistently and adamantly put in enough energy to overcoming this problem. And if he did, he wouldn't have the problem. And people in low energy, like they have such a permissive attitude to it. Like they would look at it, like with Max's problem, they would look at it, they would sympathize for it, and they would say like that's the better thing to do. Like you should sympathize for it. But when you sympathize for it, it comes with this connotation of like there's a bad thing happening to you and you can't control it, and it's so bad that you're in that position. You know what I mean? So like there's
Mm.
like there's a definitely a codependent aspect to low energy, but there's this like sympathy and permissiveness aspect to people in low energy in general that allows them to uphold it. Because like and that's the whole thing we said about holding people accountable. The reason Max doesn't get over codependency is because he gets something out of it. Or else he wouldn't. He would just stop, but he obviously gets something out of it. So the reason he didn't is just like it's a dirty high. And we talked
Yeah,
about that before, Max, like dirty highs versus clean highs.
yeah. I would say being in a codependent trap is for the most part a dirty high.
Certified dirty high.
Yeah, unfortunately. Even
It,
though
it,
it
it,
might not feel like. I mean, I guess a high doesn't. It doesn't feel like that in that time. I can only really think of one time where it felt like a dirty high. The other two times it didn't feel like that because it tricks you. I think.
we talk about this concept of like dirty highs versus like clean highs.
Mm.
It's such an abstract concept, but I just like the way that I describe clean highs as being in touch with universal law. And say if you were in a healthy interdependent relationship, it's two people, both backtracked who's compatible for them, both worked on their inner issues, who feel completely okay without one another, who see each other as they are, not an idealization. And they decide every day to make it work because they know you don't just fall into a relationship that works. You have to go through and make it work and decide you're going to like stick through with that person and see the shit all the way through. When you're in that, you get a clean high. This like clean, and it's a clean high, I think, because it encourages you to be in touch with universal law even more. It's like, all right, let's keep going. Whereas like the dirty codependent high is just this thing that just happened to you. You didn't coincide yourself to universal law. It was just everything's here and it was already that way. It was for me. It's this person who's so great for me and we're so great together and I'm holding them right now. And it's like this dirty eye because you didn't do anything to get it. You didn't like overwrite or get over anything to do it. It literally just landed upon you. Not a touch of it. So, I mean, just to cap on what causes it: low energy, low self-esteem, lack of purpose, childhood trauma, relationship to parental figures. You could say like knowledge about this in general, the lack of concept of what a healthy connection to somebody looks like. I would say are the variation of things that causes it. Talked about what causes it. Guys, how the hell do we get over it?
I'm trying.
Okay,
I wish I
Creek.
had the answers.
Right now, right, you're Max's therapist. Max is saying, Creek, how do I get over this? What do you tell him?
Well, it's not much of a problem right now, is it, for you, Max? Like, it's not something you're experiencing, right?
Well, there's a whole... Creek, you haven't heard the new events in the saga. But for the most part, I'm chilling. But, I mean, no, it's kind of hard.
Is it seasonal with your codependency, or is it, like, constant?
I would say, seasonal.
Yeah, because
But this was triggered by
what?
One aspect about Max is his brain doesn't turn on unless he talks to his people every day. So he's always in every iteration of his life identifying his people. So if it's not a relationship, it's a friend group that every day he needs to connect to somehow.
Yeah, I would say that's true for the most part.
Even to some degree, he has that relationship with work because he was like, told me he doesn't like days off because he just hates being alone. Like he hates like being at the house.
Well, yeah, because I just feel like I have
doesn't
nothing to
anything
do. Yeah, but no, that's like another example of just
Okay, yeah, that's it sounds like Max's codependency is like it's like abstract instead of just like relationship based. And I wonder if that's the case with all codependent people. But the reason I asked if it was seasonal was because like I'm like trying to identify a trigger. Like I wonder if it's like something that triggers it. You know.
We'll talk about it later, but you'll understand when I tell you what caused this whole thing. But no, I like for this last relationship, I didn't cry about like when it ended until literally the other day. Like it like hit me in the car the other day. Like, so
But I think
don't
that
know.
was the triggering aspect because we talked earlier, like it came up again and it triggered you. We talked earlier about how codependents after the relationship they just try to detach from it. Because I remember at first when you got done with this relationship, you didn't feel anything. When my relationship was ended, I instantly cried. Like I like was bawling my eyes out. So like I feel like as somebody who's gotten over the codependency thing, I feel it more fluidly. Whereas codependency is such a mode, such a fucking modality that codependence will be like, all right, this is done, turn it off.
Yeah.
Some.
Which sucks because then you don't really end up dealing with the problem. You just because it's a mode, you know.
How would he get over it? Give him the answers, Creek.
Yeah, like I said, if it was a trigger thing, because then you could just rectify the trigger. and then you wouldn't run into the same problem. But I think for you, it's just like behavioral. I think it's like kind of integrated within the way you communicate with most things. Because, Alan just mentioned that you have it with work. I mean, if you have it with work, if you have it with your friends, if you have it like with most things that you do, which is a case with me. I think I have codependency when it comes to like just to my identity and who I am. But I don't think it extends to relationships. But I think for you, it's like it's like engulfs like your whole life.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like maybe like become more independent. But I
I'm
guess that's
trying.
like easier said than done.
No,
But
I've been trying to take more steps, but it's a
but like
difficult process.
But could you guys expand on the thing about like you not feeling good if you like don't talk to friends or stuff? Like, do you find it hard to spend a day by yourself?
Um, the reason I find it hard is because like I don't feel like I have anything fulfilling to do by myself, which is like
Mm.
I'm like I don't know what to do when I'm alone or like on my days off now because I'm like I don't
That's such an
know.
extroverted archetype though, because like that's something I feel like an
No,
extrovert
but
would say. They're like, oh,
I'm not even looking for like I want to go out and hang out with people because like it's not even that. It's just more so I'm like things aren't like super stimulating like
Max, I'm sorry. Were you were you on prescription for generalized anxiety, or was it like a depression thing?
both.
Okay, yeah. If it's that, then it's just if he like is literally getting prescribed things for
hmm
depression, then it's definitely oriented to just lacking a purpose about thing in general. Which is why I think like his second relationship, which you probably don't remember that one, Creek, but his second relationship, I think like that's the thing that he loved about it so much was like today we're gonna go do this thing
It was
and we're
just
not even gonna think about
hedonistic,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, just pure like impulse. We're not gonna like. I mean, I really can't describe it any better. You had to be there, guys. You had to be there. Anyways, like or impulse. It's like I think that's the reason why in every iteration of his life he like needs his person or his crutch, because it could be a hobby or thing that he's doing, like a crutch, something to be obsessive over,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lacking of vitality. It's that aspect of codependency being attached to low energy. It's just low energy in general. So it's like the codependency just extends from feeling like you don't have anything going on.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Do you guys think there's any benefits to being a codependent, or do you think it's just all negatives?
Benefits, bro. I mean, there's dopamine highs. They're just
That's not really a benefit though. I mean, I guess it's a
we're talking
short-term
about moral
benefit.
benefits. We're talking about moral benefits or benefits that you feel as a person.
mm, I guess moral benefits.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really think of any. It makes you more likely to sympathize, and you could say that there's people who don't sympathize enough,
Yeah.
and that's all I could think of. But as far as like your own benefits, I mean, there's definitely something for your own benefits. Dopamine highs, permissiveness,
Mm.
finding pleasure in a very simple way without having to exert a lot of real effort, getting your needs met via somebody else, like be like your brain actually turning on because you're getting validation from an outside source. Several benefits for yourself. I can only think of one moral benefit though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I mean, all I could say for Max is I don't think say like what is the problem, and it seems complex when really like Max, if you put a gun to your head, if you put a gun to Max's head and you said you have 1 year left to live, you have to solve this codependency or else you're getting shot in the head. You would figure that shit out. Like because he would just consistently do the things he needs to do to get over it, and he wouldn't cave into his will. His problem is he hasn't like stuck with something adamantly. He hasn't had a strong boundary for a sustained period of time. Because sometimes he'll have it and he'll be like, you know what, I'm done. But he hasn't denied temptation. He's hedonistically went with every temptation. So he hasn't like been disciplined in like any time period about getting over it. So it's really the adamant aspect of it, the heart. But it's like what he says, it's a drug. The temptation is so high, and it gets to a point where he's watching himself do it, almost where he feels like out of control with it, out of touch with it.
Yup.
Mm.
That's like literally the best analogy. Is it's a drug. Like, I don't even think it is an analogy. Like, it literally is a drug.
I mean, I don't have anything else if I could add. I mean, I think like, okay, you say you want to get over it, it would just be like go into the independence paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
What I know of Max is, it's like, it'll be like, Max, you need to be alone and compliment yourself and learn how to love yourself and be stimulated. It'll be like day 6 of that. Max will be in a bad mood and he'll be like, okay, I'm done doing this, and he'll just go through the crutch. So I think for him, and it's case by case, right? Because I think this is a term that gets used too much because a lot of the people that use it work too hard and not smart enough. I think for him, it is a lack of discipline of like actually going through with it. It's too much giving into temptation. But what heals it in general, if we put it in a generalized sense, is finding a sense of purpose. And this is weird because this is the first podcast where like we say something and then it's just like I don't know what else to say, because this is like such a problem for Max where it has that detached aspect to it where he's just watching it. So we're like, we'll make this point right now. Then Max would be like, yeah, it's true. He feels to a core level out of control to it. Like it's a thing he's watching go by him that he's not in touch with. So Creek, give him an answer. This is your fucking friend, Creek. Help
An answer
him.
how to get over it?
Help him, Creek.
Wait, help him how?
Tell him
Creek
what he
ain't
needs
got
to
the
do.
answers.
Tell him what he needs to do.
I don't know. I don't know what you need to do. I'll be honest, I have no idea.
Damn, Creek.
Yeah. Big problem for him. I mean, like this is a podcast that just hits so home.
This is like,
One of the
this is the
members.
codependency episode has just turned into Max's problems.
Yeah, this is the
It's the
Max's
Max's
Problems
problems
episode.
episode.
Okay. Look, I think to end it on a somewhat light note, we'll talk about what it looks like getting over it. What it looks like getting over it to me is, first, this is the practical way to do it. This is the only way I know how to do it. You have to decide to have an independence paradigm. Have an independence era of your life where you say, right now, I'm going to fully integrate my relationship to me. I'm going to integrate an era of my life where I am the center of my life and I feel completely congruent with that center. And if I feel a lack of purpose, I'm going to stay with it and try everything to where I feel purpose just being me and living day to day. From there, you can talk to people, interact with people, but it has to be you guys sharing life, you know, like you're fully in your thing, they're fully in their thing, and you colluminate and you fully respect their independence and you conceive of them who they are with their strengths, their weaknesses, their overall their overall patterns, what they do across time, what their values are. You truly conceive of that, and you're like, all right, look, I don't need you, but I'm going to choose to be with you. I'm going to choose to love you. I'm going to commit to you, and let's make this shit work. Now, if you act out of line, I'm going to set a boundary. And if this ends, I am still going to feel a sense of purpose, and I'm still going to feel congruent in me. I integrated my independence paradigm. I'm okay if this ends. I'm still going to engage in it, but I'm okay. That's what it looks like. So really, to get to step 3, step 3 I think is the highest paradigm you can get in, because we're social humans, so I think it's the highest you can get. To actually be in an interdependent relationship, like 2 people doing their own fucking thing, giving each other bits of wisdom, like going towards a goal, that is the shit. This is the shit. And I can't wait to experience that for me. Right now I have to integrate my independence paradigm some more. I had a little crush and breakup, so I got to go in. So really what's poignant is, how do you get to that independence? And it's a commitment to be in touch with your own purpose and a commitment to feel fully congruent to you. And gotta cut the idealization to do it.
Yup.
That's it. I don't have anything else to say. Creek, anything you want to add?
No, nothing. I think that's it.
Yup.
Max, anything you want to add?
No, not really. No.
I tried to like I
Been a
tried to
tough
wrap it up
episode
on
for
like an
me.
I tried to wrap it up in like an optimistic way, but it's literally like all of this like max level 50 sentiment
No,
of like,
I just feel
oh,
bad
no,
because
no.
it's like sometimes I wish I could communicate the struggle I
Mhm.
have with codependency better, but it's really a hard thing to like. I
You're in
don't
that bitch. It's hard to know when you're in it. It has the grips of you.
exactly.
Yes, sir. Look, go read Codependent No More by Melody Beetle, y'all. Kill yourself. Love yourself. We got this. Praise God. Praise the world. Everything is beautiful. We're all beautiful. We don't need anybody. We are on our purpose. And we will see you
Yeah.
on episode 9 when we talk about ENFPs. Peace the fuck out.